Now we have another prestigious guest, Fatih Yıldız, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey. He's Director of Human Resources. Mr. Yıldız, you have the stage.
Good afternoon. So yes, I'm the Director of Human Resources at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I've been doing this job for the last 20 years. For the ones who haven't read my bio, I have served in different countries. This is my end of my fourth tour in different parts of the world. So I started in Sarajevo, with Bosnia. I was there immediately after the war. And then we have at an international organization. Not an international organization like UN, maybe, but Organization for Security and Cooperation with a membership of 54 countries. And then to Washington, I was the first secretary of the consulate at Washington. And I recently came back from Chicago. I was the Consul General of Turkey in Chicago. So basically what I did is, as you can imagine, in diplomacy there are three main types of posts that you can serve. One is a bilateral one, the other is a multilateral one, and the other one is a consulate, where we reach out to the people and serve for people. So luckily, I was one of those favorite members of this ministry that I had the luck and opportunity to serve in those three different posts of diplomacy, I should say. And of course, Honorable Secretary General, dear delegates, it's a pleasure, and it's indeed a distinct privilege for me to be speaking at this very first model UN that Big Tech is hosting. As Dr. has just highlighted, it's supposed to be fun as well. It was a game, so I don't know why this Security Council took that long. And you couldn't finish this Security Council. I heard that there were some others who missed the lunch just for the Security Council. So it was a game, but anyway, it's fun. It's always fun, and I'm under clear instruction from one of the fellow members of the delegates, which happens to be my daughter, who is among you, to make it short and make it fun, the address, I should say. So, yeah, I'll talk about a little bit about what diplomacy is, what it means for us as a Turkish diplomat, and then the relevance of what you did during this exercise. You must be hearing a lot the words that the world is shrinking or the world is flat nowadays. It makes much sense, in fact, when you compare the world of today with the world of those years that we were working on during the last couple of days back in 1946, were the ones who were in the United Nations. So when we take ourselves back to those years, as you can imagine, it took like 33 days for Charles Lindbergh to fly from one side of Atlantic to the other side, and in 50 years. A plane called Concorde took that distance in 3 hours. And when you look at a telephone call between Ankara and New York, like those mid-century years, it will be just for those people at the governmental levels and those people who can afford it to make that telephone call. Now you can reach to the other side of the world in an instant, not only with phones but with internet and all these things. And so a human activist, or let's say an environmentalist, in a remote part of the world, like in Africa or in Asia, have the same needs as all those governments during those years that we studied. So it is a world of constant change, and we have to be well aware of this first and foremost. And with this change, of course, there are certain, change in the rules of this game that we have played. So back in 1946, there were mainly the actors of the states. So when we speak about diplomacy, it was all about this, the government and their representatives in UN, basically. And UN was only 1 year old. So it was, even an international organization was a new thing for the world. But now, when you look at today's world, it changes tremendously. So even a multinational corporation, a transnational corporation, can be an actor of international relations, like McDonald's, for example, or Boeing. So these can be some valid counterparts or players in international relations, or some non-state actors, some non-governmental organizations like Greenpeace, for example, which can be sometimes a pain to interact with, but it is still an important element in international relations. Or, sadly, back in 2001, and most of you were, I don't know what age you were, but it was, I guess, earlier, I guess, 5 or 4. So back in 2001, when we speak about this very unfortunate 9/11, the thing that happened, it changed the rules of the game again. So suddenly, a non-state actor in the form of a terrorist organization became a player in international relations. So comparing it with the years that you say, 1946, to today's world, there is an incredible change. And there are certain things that didn't change. When you look at history, for example, like if you go back like 2,500 years ago, like those, Greek city-states, you must have watched this Troy, the Brad Pitt plays in it. So in that, there is a war between the Athenians and the Trojans, okay? So when you look at that movie and that fight, Thukydides, this Greek historian, wrote about it, and there is not much of a difference between today and the rules of the game back then as well. The balance of power, the alliances, all of those tricks that those players play against each other. There is not much of a change. So what we have to do is we have to grasp the fact that in the area that we are now studying, and I see myself as a student of international relations as well, in this area that we study, there is a constant change, but there is a constant continuity as well. So we have to hit the balance between these two. So I cannot imagine, back to the start, than the exercise that we had, which has this very historical perspective, back in the 1940s, that you can compare the past with today. So therefore, I salute you for taking such a team for this conference, which brings this asset to you, somewhat injecting history in today, so that you can grasp that huge change that we lived only in a century, or less than a century, I should say. So that's a great, let's say, asset for you, and compliments to all of you who worked hard on this with their minds and hearts during these years, during these couple of days. This is one aspect. This is an asset. Another asset for you is, of course, diplomacy is about the perceptions. It's not only about how you perceive yourselves. It's not only about how you define yourselves, but how the others define you as well, or how they define themselves as well. So what you did during those last couple of days is you role-played. You put yourself in the place of other countries, other peoples who are from different cultures, which is a great asset again for all of you. Not as, let's say, someone that will be working in the international area, after high school or after the college, but as it will be a great human asset for you as well, to have this, to be able to look into the events from others' eyes as well, through the prism of the others. The best way to accept this is to highlight this as a diplomat, I should say. I always, give the example of these 3 maps that you can buy in different parts of the world. Let's say that you buy a map in Brussels, where the doctor comes from, to in the midst of Europe, where this European idea has been established. So you'll see Europe right at the center of that map. It is a Eurocentric work for them, and they define West and East and continent to that map. But when you go to Hawaii, let's say, I haven't been to Hawaii, by the way, and that's one of the complaints that the delegate from China always makes. We have never been to Hawaii, but let's imagine that we bought a map from Hawaii, and you will see the Hawaiians put themselves right at the center of that map. And you will see, let's say, Asia to the left of the map, and the rest of the world to the right. Maybe somewhere at the corner you will see Europe, but not right at the center of it. When you go to New Zealand, the third map, it's very similar to the Hawaii map, but the difference is New Zealand is at the top of the world. So it is a world that you take south to the north. So it's all about perceptions, but we tend to put ourselves in the middle of the world, which is a very valid argument, that we put ourselves right at the center of the world. That's why the Chinese, for example, refer their first empires as the middle kingdom, right? They see themselves right at the middle of things. Or in the Hobbit, we hear about this middle world as well, which is very relevant to this topic as well. But the important thing, what you did today and during these couple of days, you were not anywhere, you were not anymore as Turks or from other nationalities among you. You were not anymore putting yourselves right at the center of the world. You were looking into things from a different map, which is very important as human beings and as potential, let's say, people who will be working in these areas. So I congratulate you for this as well, and taking this challenge as well. So let's all first step to say that when you do certain challenging things, you have two important results. One of them is you simply deepen your self-understanding, your self-awareness. So what you basically do is you make a self-discovery, you find your weaknesses, and you'll find your strengths. During this last couple of days, I'm sure that you find certain strengths and weaknesses in yourself, which is another asset for you, which is great for you to experience. And what the philosophers say that the second asset for those challenging things is to explore and expand new practices and new, let's say, areas. And that's what you do when you delve into certain specific topics, ranging from climate change to predictive values. So these are all, kudos to you, to all of you, that I congratulate you for that. And as the head of the Department for the Human Resources, I'm very glad that we will be having some potential members of our ministry in the future maybe who are encouraged by this great experience that we had during this last couple of days. Thank you again, and I will take up some, let's say, two questions. Okay, let's restrict ourselves with that. I'll take two questions from the audience. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I'm very grateful to give the right to speak. And as for my question, we have been told that everyone has been told that Turkey's geopolitical and geographical place and situation is very important for the world and for us. And but it's turned out to be that our geographical place and situation is not so beneficial for us. As we all know, the Middle East is boiling water right now, and we are catching you as the representative of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and forgive me if it's so explicitly, but how would you assess our republic's zero problem policy with our neighbors in the Middle East?
Okay, yes, that's what we got to refer as well. Right. Okay, yes, I mean, geography is an important ingredient of diplomacy. It's the case, definitely. And turning this into a liability, a burden, or somewhat an advantage for you is all about your policies. So you cannot simply go ahead as a Turkish diplomat and say that, and complain about your geography, saying that, this geography, if we were in another geography, we would be like some other country, okay? You can't do this, so you have to live with all those facts. But of course, the full awareness about the geography is that, let's say another neighborhood, just to create an empathy for you. Let's say US and Canada, okay? A great relation, okay? But when you go from one side of the US to another, to the Canadian side, you see that even the Canadians and the Americans have certain things that they can then agree as well. Like they have certain border problems. So wherever you live, the human aspect is always there when it comes to diplomacy. So Turkey is one of those countries that has to live with this geography, and we cannot change our neighbors. So it is all about us, the tactics and the strategy that the Turkish diplomacy puts in place to make that environment, that geography, to turn it into as much of an asset for Turkey as possible. So that's the part of it. Zero problem policy, yes, that's part of that strategy. It sounds very passionate for such a geography, of course. You're not living in a neighborhood of US and Canada. It's obvious. When you go to South Turkey, we're talking about Syria, Iraq, Iran. These are all in the headlines. It's not the same neighborhood that we're talking about in the other parts of the world. So it was a passionate thing, but with some realism, believe me. It was the first, let's say, move on the part of the Turks in all the geography and in all this neighborhood to say that, hey, I will give up this, relations of tension and controversy between us and them in this region, which was a novelty in this region. You wouldn't see any other country that's coming. And it comes from one of the largest players in this region. It's not coming from, let's say, Armenia or others. We're talking about Turkey, one of the leading countries of this region that extends this friendship hand, not only to Iran, one of those, larger countries in the region, but to tiny Armenia as well, which was a novelty. But of course, we have to bear in mind that this is a two-way process. It has to be reciprocated by the others. But we are, we're determined about this, and we will take our lessons out of this. Diplomacy is all about, stop taking it seriously. So it is a very empirical exercise. What we learn from our practices. But thank you. Great question. Is it okay? Yes.
First of all, we'd like to thank you for your speech. You said that the geography could be made into an asset rather than a liability,
Yes.
as considering the example of the Trojan War, which led to the fall of Troy because of Troy's actions, wrong actions in their foreign diplomacy.
Yeah.
And as we look into our age, we cannot say that the foreign diplomacy of Turkey is very bright right now. Can you explain how geography could be made into an asset under these circumstances?
Yeah, geography is a reality, is how highlighted. So it's all about the diplomacy that we will be implementing, and diplomacy is a way of convincing the others. And of course, you have today, during the last couple of days, worked on a very small portion of diplomacy. It was all about negotiations in an international atmosphere, right? So you have to be able to use other elements of diplomacy, not only negotiate, but play other instruments of diplomacy, ranging from economic statecraft, okay? Using, for example, the economy as an asset, or the culture, I should say. These are all important ingredients of diplomacy. So let's say that you play economy as an asset, rather than your geography. And being neighbors is a part of this. Enlarging the economic relations or trade relations between the neighbors will be an important asset against this difficult geography aspect. Okay? So that's what Turkey did, for example, during the last decade. We have increased our trade ties with all of our neighbors. We have tripled or quadrupled our volume of relations. And it went well, it went quite well. And when you look at, for example, the cultural aspect, the soft power that's much referred nowadays, soft power, or all those powers that are outside of your military power that you can count on, economy, culture, trade. These are all important aspects of it. Ranging from Croatia to China, let's say. People watching the Turkish soap operas. Well, you may be tired of watching them here, but people watch these. This is an important element of instrument of diplomacy, believe me. I mean, you are an instrument of diplomacy in this region. So that's why we don't limit the definition of diplomacy on the things between the states. It's all about people and all things that are relevant to people. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the right to speak. In my humble opinion, in Turkey there is too much of a divide between the views of the public, and when the government decides on a matter, you personally, as a representative of Turkey, can agree with it or do not agree with it. And when representing Turkey, how much do you have to role play?
That's a great question. But I love my job, so I cannot lose my job with my answer to this question. It's okay. You can have my approach. The thing is, sincerity is not one of the well-known ingredients of this job. I mean, being sincere will not help in this job much to you. So I'm being sincere with my previous remark, of course, and because this is a dedicated atmosphere. I am, with fellow citizens of Turkey, most of them and some other friends. So this is about among friends. Definitely, I mean, I have my personal views on things about Turkey. And on the other hand, I have a public role. And Chicago was my first place that I served as the chief of a mission. Chief of a mission means that you are the one that's always at the forefront, that you are always on the spotlight. Okay? People are watching you, and when they criticize the policies in Turkey, they're the ones that they relate to you most. The way out of this, first and foremost, questioning yourself, your country, and your let's say, some faults in Turkey, let's say. The way out of this is to, not to, let's say, deny it, but to find a way to communicate with your own people, and in your, own very small little world around people, the people around you, and to somewhat find a way to relate to them, and carry that back to the capital, back to the headquarters. And that's what we generally do in diplomacy. And it's not only about our own people, our own, public outside of Turkey, but it's all about our allies as well. Sometimes allies can be frustrated about Turkey as well. But we are the ones that are positioned, that have that critical position. We are the go-betweens, okay? We have to go from one side to the other and make two other sides, make each other, understand. This is a very huge role of empathy, and when you lose control and you pick one side, then you're not a professional anymore, and that's not what you are paid for, and that's our task. And interests, national interests, and the interests of the public in the largest sense is the key in terms of approaching these issues. It's a huge challenge, but it definitely develops you. You can sense it. You change in time, and it's a very self-exploratory thing. And that's why I love this show. Thank you. The last one there.
Firstly, thank you for your speeches and answering our questions. So my question is going to be related to the ones that I asked the representative of NATO. Do you think that the Turkey's policy is the cause of the increasing number of speeches that are stating that Turkey is neither helping ISIS or refusing to fight ISIS?
Yeah. Right. The thing about this ISIS is, it's part of the truth. We cannot deny the fact that we are, neighbors with ISIS now. When you go to the border, you see the ISIS right there. Maybe, you don't need a binocular to see eye to eye with the ISIS, okay? And, being the head of the human resources, I was the person that was responsible for those, people that were hijacked, 46 people that were taken out of our consulate in Mosul. They were the ones who slept together with the ISIS people for 100 days. They slept with those, suicide bombers. And it's kind of a different feeling. Being at the front line is not like, making remarks somewhere else. So that's part of the diplomacy again. That's part of being able to understand each other. And as allies, we do that. We do that. But as allies, we have to be sincere and sometimes very, very open to each other as well. And those are the remarks that you're referring to. These are remarks that are among the allies. And I'm not here to preach about, what plays out in Brussels here in front of a friend from the Secretariat. So what I will say that these are, simple, let's say, exchanges that we need to be doing about, the realities out in the field. And when it comes to support and other things, we're part of NATO. We're one of the staunch members of NATO. So we invested a lot in this alliance. And this alliance invested a lot in us and in our difficult times. So that's how we define our relationship. It's not, we have seen these things before, many different things. We overcome them. So this is one of those small episodes that we have to play our roles, I guess. And thank you. That was a great question. Thank you again. It was very enjoyable, and it was a great break for me from the ministry to be here with you. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you for this